another one.
Question for those who do automation. I've been playing with Playwright JavaScript by following a Udemy course and quite comfortable with just finding and selecting elements, basic UI tests really. I use real websites, not what they use in the courses. Question is, how often do you find yourself writing actual programming code for scenarios you want to achieve? Or do you keep the test as simple as possible and just mostly select this, click here, has this, does that, put through a pipeline, and you're done? I'm learning JavaScript as well. So what can you help me with? All right. Great question. Very, very great question. So, our clock. And I think the first and foremost, you must be a subscriber to this channel because your approach is gold. Right? When I read your approach, I was like,
Money.
yeah. So using real websites and not just following along, that's what I do with pretty much everything, right? On the Terraform, on Sunday, going through Terraform, I always deviate from what they're doing because from what the course I'm taking doing because I want to actually understand it better myself. I want to learn it. I want to know what I'm doing. So like learning these VPCs, going through like the AWS configuration so I can recreate it and then create it in Terraform, right? So what you're doing is perfect, right? Now, your question is, how often do you find yourself writing actual programming code for scenarios you want to achieve? All the freaking time, right? Everything, like all the time. I am always like, if you could see some of the automation tests that I've written before, right? It's some crazy stuff. I'll give you an example of an integration that I did, right? In Java, using TestNG, there's a feature called like data providers, right? Where you can either feed the data like through an inline list or array. You can have it go through a CSV file. You can have it go through an Excel file. And there's different libraries to get those to work. But here's a problem that I was always having with that, right? Is I didn't want my data to live as part of the code base, right? Because if I needed to add another line of data, I'd have to go in there, update the Excel file, then I have to commit it and all that type of stuff, right? And I didn't like it. So what I did was I went and I went to Google, right? Got a Google Developer Console or whatever they call it, right? Got an API key. And I said, I'm going to create the data provider from Google Sheets, right? So did all that integration, figured all that good stuff out. And I put my test data in there, right? So now when the test is running, it goes through there and then I can just throw in another line. I can delete a line of test data. I can do whatever I want to do, but I do not have to go inside of the code base to update test data because I believe that test data should be as externalized as possible, especially when it's like for tests, right? If it's something that's like static or something, not necessarily static, but like it's configuration information, I'll pass that as a parameter in 9 times out of 10, right? But I want my test data so where I can I can add to it, I can modify it, I can change it, whatever the case is. And the best way to do that was through Google Sheets, right? The best way to do that was through Google Sheets. And that integration was absolutely amazing. And then doing that years ago, right? When I was interviewing, I told the manager like, oh yeah, and I did this to do Google Sheets, or I would feed the test data. And it was like, oh wow, I never heard of that before. That is QA innovation. That is QA engineering. That is QA architecture, right? And if you're new, right, to QA, to my channel, you're like, oh man, this is like, that's crazy. Like, it doesn't even make any sense to me. But the reason that I share that with you is because there is so much more that you can do. And like the last question is like, oh, anybody can do it. The developers can do it, whatever. But as a QA person, you're like, oh, how can I do this better? How can I push forward, right? So And like if you could see some of the automation that like, for instance, the challenge that the first challenge that I did from Don, right? That was the MP3 challenge where you're extracting different attributes of an MP3 file and you're trying to do validation and getting the duration and stuff like that. That was a lot of research that we had to do, but it was so meaningful. But that, like, the further you get, right? Because guess what? I've been seeing positions about testing video, right? But if we're just sticking to like, oh, I'm going to test this e-commerce website, that this fake e-commerce website, right? Fake e-commerce website that some bootcamp gives me that no one's actually even buying. Like, you're not selling anything, right? It's not real, right? But I can only imagine the type of stuff, the type of automation stuff that Don is doing. So it's not just these basic things. Like, the further you get down the rabbit hole, the more complicated tests that you're going to have to figure out. Like, here's another type of position, right? Where you are testing ads that are inserted into videos, right? So for instance, like with YouTube, if you don't have the premium, you get tons of ads on your video. But as a YouTube employee, I'm not a YouTube employee, but I know what they do, right? They have to test the functionality of inserting those ads at different spots of the video, right? And guess what? Meaning that I work for a video company, not YouTube, but I work for a video company. I understand the process and what they have to do to accomplish that type of testing, where you're inserting ads at different spots of a video, right? So to answer your question specifically, right? It's not mostly just select this, click here and that, right? Maybe for like in the boot camps and like the new entry level people who are trying to get into automation, maybe that's what they do. But things are getting more and more complicated. And of course, like, yeah, I still have some tests that are like, navigating a website and stuff like that. I do it for fun, to teach you guys, to help you guys level up. But as you continue to get deeper and deeper into the different sectors of testing, it's going to become a lot more complex, and you're going to have to really engineer some solutions. All right. So, and that's when like Terraform comes into play, Docker comes into play, all of that stuff. All right. So Don says, Chaos Camp Web Challenge Shadow DOM may change his mind. It definitely changed my mind. And Don says, I worked for many years for a forensic investigation software. There was little vanilla web tests and very complicated tests and tools to create test data. It is what it is. It's not all roses.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.